What's happening, people? This is episode 7.
What's happening?
Episode 7. Joel did post it.
I
It was
thought it was
episode
episode
6. Okay, he doesn't
Look,
even
time
know
flies
his
when
own
you're having
podcast.
fun.
Look, it's fucking
Time flies
shocking.
when you're having fun, doesn't it?
I had
But-
something interesting up on Instagram, man.
Was it my page?
Well, if you didn't know, guys, Joel, I've actually got. You
Listeners
should
and
all
fans.
visit this website right now.
On today's episode of the Archive Podcast is sponsored by joelharrys.com.
Quick shout out to our
joelharrys.com
sponsors.
is a new and innovative website that has a nutrition calculator, 1 rep max calculator, and a free return to training ebook if you subscribe to the newsletter. So head over to joelharrys.com to get your free ebook now.
Before we go into this,
back to the podcast.
I'm going to do the nutrition calculator real quick.
Oh, wow.
So all you do,
Going for it.
guys, it's all on the website. Put in your metric. So kilograms and centimeters. I am male. Aged 23. Height 6 foot.
Height 6 foot,
174 centimeters. Weight
100
70
kilos.
Moderate exercise at the moment. Sleep. You get a little flag up above sleep, carbs and fats, and then all your macros come up right at the top. Look at that. Nice and simple. You get your calories. You get your maintenance calories, deficit calories, and surplus calories. You get a little graph of how that should change based on your activity level, so you can regulate yourself. Gives you a protein and carb threshold, and all that interesting stuff. Check that out on joelharrys.com. Let's get on with the podcast.
That was a quick little intro.
No, I thought I might do you a little favour, get a little demo going on. There's a lot more features on the website other than that, mind. Right, let's go. Let's talk about.
We won't bore you with the details.
No, let's go.
Right, episode 7 of the Archive Podcast is going to be on how to be a good client, because there's a lot of onus on the PT to be a good PT, and as it should be, because you're paying them
for that service.
Yeah, you need them to do a premium service for you. But what's not spoken about quite a lot is how to be a good client. And I feel is a two-way relationship with PT and client, and is one that needs to have both mutual respect for each other, so you get the most out of your personal trainer and your personal trainer gets the most out of you as a client, to ensure that you're getting better towards your goals.
Just so it runs nice and smooth. Nice and smooth.
Because if it doesn't, you have that little bit of friction.
Yeah,
you get that little bit of friction, and that's never a good sign of a relationship.
No,
not a good sign of a good relationship.
What I do want to touch on is what do you see? After we discuss the main body of the topic, let's just quickly round up at the end. What things do you see from an outside perspective, between a PT and coach that doesn't align with your own views on it? Do you get me? So what are little things you see, subtle things that you see that may give you the hint that the relationship between that particular coach or client isn't optimal? I want to touch on that towards the end.
I think, if we roll into that now, because I don't really like the whole punishment perspective.
Yeah, all that, autocratic, I'm the PT, I'm the fucking boss, man.
Yeah,
you listen to me.
And at the end of the day, it's a relationship, and
yeah.
You wouldn't let us slide. You'd probably pick them up on it. Say your mate's running late, for example. Say, right, everyone knows I'm good mates with Luke Shaw. Say you're going to do something, and he's running about 30 minutes late. That's the usual time frame of Luke's clock.
So you've got Lombardi time, which is 15 minutes before, and then you've got Luke Shaw time, which is 30 minutes after. If you're 30 minutes late, you're on time.
Yeah. So when you're running with Luke, it's annoying. If you're doing certain things that you want to be on time for, a lot of the time is just a relaxed time, which you don't mind. But he's starting to get a bit better. But you'll pick him up on it. You won't punish him for being late. You'll just pick him up on it because you're in a two-way relationship. You should respect each other and be like, look, I don't really like how you're running late for this. Come on, mate. We got you'll pick him up on it, and he's usually better with it. And then it's that sort of relationship. You wouldn't then, if he's running late, you wouldn't then be like, I want you to do 100 burpees because you're late.
Yeah,
And that's
'cause
what I
then
see.
you're like sacrificing the whole. You're creating like a dynamic for that 1 hour or 45 minutes or an hour and a half you have with that person on negativity. Because I know like people who come to a PT have typically got like, they've got a little bit of anxiety about training on their own. That's kind of why they come to a PT. You're just what I find is like that instills a little bit of anxiety in the client, which ultimately you're just not going to get the most out of them in that session. And to be honest, like if I was a client, my PT like give me a telling off, I think about that all session and they just put me off.
Yeah, and I think to punish someone for being late, they're paying you to be there. So for that hour, however much you cost, they're paying you to be there for that time. If they don't want to turn up on time, that's their time they're wasting. They're wasting yours as well, because ideally, when you pay a PT, they should be invested enough that they want to help you get better towards your goals. And if you're not there, it should be it's a problem for them helping you reach their full potential. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you shouldn't then punish them for being late. You should just try and build a mutual respect where they respect you enough they want to be on time.
Yeah.
Because they want to get the most from their sessions. And that shouldn't be through a fear thing. That should be through a positive, I want to get better, so I want the full hour. I want my full hour of time. I want to get better in that full hour. Not, oh, you know what? I'll turn up 10 minutes late. I know I'm going to get bollocked in, but yeah, that's fine. I'm only there for...
Yeah, because what I find is that you've just got to create that, state where the client understands they get what they get out what they put in effectively. We are not losing out if you're late or you're putting half effort into the session. We are doing our job regardless. We are not the ones losing out. You're the ones inevitably losing chances of achieving your goal and effectively losing money. Like, as long as you convey that to the client to a point where they understand and they're like, do you know what? Yeah, you are right. Without creating that awkward, oh shit, I'm going to have a bollocking off so-and-so this week because, my kids were late eating breakfast and I was late taking them to school. Do you get me? Things come up. You haven't always got to be, I'll put it as frank as this. If you're a PT and you give your client a bollocking every time they're late or they do something that doesn't align with your sort of practice for that or outlook for that particular session, and you treat them badly or you punish them, you're a twat.
And I think that's where the level of respect comes in. So
Yeah.
if you're a client that, say, routinely like cheats on the diet, whatever, you give them set macros, they're always running over, they're not tracking, that comes to a point where you should not instill that belief in them by fearing them not to do it. So giving them a telling off, say, you've eaten again, why are you doing this? Oh God, you're going to get fat, this and that. And that's what you hear some PTs do. They're like, oh, you're on this many calories, why are you going over? You know you're overweight, you know you need to lose weight. And you should go about it by saying, look, you've gone over again. Something's not working in this diet. Something needs to change to make sure that we keep getting better. And it should be a two-way process of looking for a solution rather than punishing to hide the behavior. You should look at forming a new behavior that will be better than the last one and help you get better towards your goals rather than punishment and then trying to just like scare the behavior out of them. Because if that's not working, there's a reason why it's not working.
I know a specific, case of this. It always leads to the client either leaving the personal trainer, so the relationship is ultimately over. You're only going to tarnish your reputation as a coach because people will catch up on you, and you're never good. You're going to be without the goal. You're going to be out of pocket. Because I remember one instance, like I'm not going to name the PT or the coach, but the client said, "Oh, I don't really like spinach. Can I have something else? Can you give me an alternative to spinach?" The response was, "Yes, spinach." And I quote, "Yes, the alternative is spinach. Eat the spinach or be fat." Basically that. And that's why I feel like it's always, it just leaves a bit of a, like the old school teacher student vibes where, teachers didn't get on. It's that vibe. Where I think like client PT should be pals. I think it should have a bit of banter, like, come on now, 10 minutes late. And that should be the extent of the telling off. But anyway, let's talk about like, what you can do as a client rather than just having a dig at PTs now, because this is kind of what it's turning into.
Yeah, so I think me and Dan have both come up with a list. And it's just going to be 5 things that we believe as PTs is going to be something that you need to do to be successful as a client. And ultimately, being successful as a client means that you're getting better, you're getting towards your goals, which means that you'll become a better person and the person you want to be. So, Dan, if we rattle off, I don't think they're in any particular order. Like,
Yeah, you could. I don't
mine
know.
are not.
Potentially, you could create like a little pyramid out of this for yourself. But bear with me, I'm going to sneeze.
Oh, go on. If you were watching that on the YouTube, you just witnessed that.
I'm cutting that out, bro. That was the most flamboyant sneeze.
Right. So, on to the list. Dan, what is your number 1 on the list?
So this is just the first point that I made. The first one that came up to me, like to mind, was, firstly when you start any life fitness journey, you need a goal. This goal needs to be, you need to establish this goal. You need to like work collaboratively with your PT to create this goal. Consult with your coach to get this goal. Do not deviate from this goal and change it weekly, because you can't achieve, greatness in a week, aside how cliche that sounds. Like, you can't change your goal every week and expect to achieve anything. Create small measurable goals, like measure little achievements across the way. Like me and Joel discussed this on one of our lives the other day. Those small measurable goals will lead you to the ultimate goal. So don't goal hop. That's probably the biggest thing, is like just sticking to a goal and do not change that. If that's what you want, shoot for it. Don't change it every couple of days, because your mind changes.
And I think on that, if you are someone that's got a multitude of goals, so a lot of people want to achieve a lot, and they come to the gym, they're like, I want to do this, want to do that, I want to do this, want to do that, I want to do everything. That's good. You've set yourself some big goals there, and it shouldn't just be like a tunnel vision on the one thing. It should be that you want to kind of branch off. You kind of want to get better in a lot of different avenues, but understand that you only have so much like energy you can to get better. And if you're spreading that energy across 5 different goals, ultimately they're all going to get dampened because you're trying to spread yourself too thin.
Yeah.
If you've got a multitude of goals, prioritize one at certain points of your training.
So understand that this is, I'm not trying to put anyone off, because if you're listening to this podcast, you've done train. I don't want to put you off training, but this is a lifetime process. These goals will be achieved across like your whole training career. Like Joel has got training related goals that he hasn't achieved yet. Like so have I. So if you're a PT, your job then is to best prepare that person to achieve those goals and conveying and giving them a little framework of how they can achieve those goals across a longer period of time. So this will go in, because me and Joel discussed before we ran the podcast, we had a little bit of chat about this. So this will tie in nicely to like what I think your next point is, and kind of what mine is, which is like working with the coach and, that whole process of like upskilling that client. So what can a client do to prepare themselves for the long term?
Yeah.
training?
So I think that a lot of times people go there just to work, and they just think, right, I'm going to go there and just follow whatever they tell me to. And yeah, that's well and good. You're going to get short-term results because you're doing what they say. But it's the whole analogy of, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man to fish, he'll eat for the rest of his life. And I think too many people go to PT to just eat the fish. Yeah. When in reality, they need to learn the skills of getting better and the process and how you do it. Because if you understand the process, you can achieve the goal. And that's coming to questioning your coach. So as a coach, if your client asks you something and you can't give a valid reason for why they're doing it or like an answer to it, you need to go upskill yourself to be able to provide the valid answer, or you shouldn't be doing that specific point that you're preaching.
Mm-hmm.
So as a client, you can question your coach. So if someone was to ask me, why am I doing this specific, why am I eating this many calories? I could go back and explain that we eat so many calories in a day. This number has to be less than what we burn as a whole to lose weight. And this is why I've given you that number. It's a bit more, it's not as low as some people might give you. It's a bit more sustainable to give you that longer thing. That's why we're doing it. And if you ask someone and just go, because I say so, then you're doing yourself as a PT a disservice, because you're not helping that client understand how to get better. And you're doing your client a massive disservice in, because you're just like giving him a fish. You're not telling him how to fish. And I think that's going to be one of like that'll lead on to my first point then of how to be a good client. And that would be question your coach. And I think that ties in with Dan's second point as well, doesn't it?
Oh, so that was your second point. I thought right. My second point is, so work with the coach, and the coach work with your client, collaborate as a process. Like as a coach, you're not the boss. You both work together. You just have the tools to sort of like upskill that particular person. You know, you're not, just because you have that specific skill over that client, they're paying you for a service, does not mean you're, judge, jury, and executioner for that particular person. Like, you need to work together. You need to educate that person, that you need to be prepared to answer questions. And as a client, you should ask every single question. Like, if you go to a PT, for example, and they are doing a specific exercise, ask why. And if they can't answer, get out of there. Get out of there. If you ask a PT a question about something that isn't related to what you're doing right now, and they come back and say, I don't know, go and learn yourself, or, look down other avenues. And if you're a PT, don't just go, I don't know, or just go, give me 24 hours and I'll have an answer for you. So I'm just I'm going off on a bit of a tangent now, on not how to be a good client, but how to streamline the training process a little bit better. So, but yeah, work with the coach, ask questions, really put an onus on learning. So to be a good client, just learn. Just learn. Be a sponge of information. Because those hours that you spend with that trainer, they're not just counting reps for you. You've got that hour with them. Like, pick their brains. Like, learn. Like, ask for homework. Jesus. Like, honestly, like.
Yeah, and that's why I always, whenever someone new signs up for online coaching or PT, one of the first, in the first phone call, one of the things I say is, please get on my nerves. That means that you're doing yourself justice and asking me all the questions you need to know to understand how to get better. And I say it jokingly, like, get on my nerves. It doesn't get on my nerves. And it actually excites me that someone wants to learn, because I was in that position at one point where I was like trying to sponge everything up and learn everything I know. And it was such a fun process. You understand a lot about what goes on, and is that whole bell curve in it. I'm trying to think that, what's that theory where you start learning, you think you know everything, but then it quickly...
You realise you actually know nothing.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you're on about. Oh, my God.
Oh, right, on.
It's like I went to a talk. We had Chris on last week. Chris put a big, emphasis on this. It was like the coach's like journey, starting out as a practitioner. You're learning. Midway through your education, so when you leave uni, you think you know everything, and then quickly you realize that you actually know nothing.
The Dunning-Kruger effect.
That's the
Dunning-Kruger effect. So when you first start out, you because there's so much to learn, you learn a lot very quickly. And then that puts you at the top of that curve where it's like, God, I think I know everything. But once you get to that point, you realize that you're only scratching the surface and there's a lot more to learn. And the quicker you get through that process, the better it is for you and the more you're going to dedicate yourself to lifelong learning. And I've always said you shouldn't be looking for a shortcut for long-term results, and that's where it is. And that period of lifelong learning where you're going to try and better yourself over not a series of days and weeks, but a series of months and years is going to be a really fun process of self-betterment, and where you should actually focus a lot of your and invest your time in is that learning process. So that was my second point, but I haven't scratched on the first yet.
Yeah, you didn't touch. You didn't get a chance to touch on the first.
No,
I went on
so
such tangent.
It just kind of linked with Dan's. But the first thing that I wrote down was do the uncoachables, and this has been instilled in me through rugby. So it's quite easy to give 100% in your PT sessions. It's quite easy to give 100% when you've got someone there pressuring you to do it. You've got that external motivation to get better. So when you're playing rugby, you do the skill sessions because someone's there telling you to do a skill session. No one wants to go catch and pass a ball for 500 times a day. But that's the stuff that you need to instill in yourself, and they're the uncoachables that you need to do to make sure you keep getting better. So relating that back to training, that would be a client filling out their logbook so you can check over it and you've got up-to-date information that you can provide and relay solutions for with things they're struggling. That would be a client filming one of their sets to show you when they're not in your time to see if they're doing it correctly. That would be the client making that decision, that educated decision not to have a fast food because they've already gone higher on calories and they understand that is a calories in versus calories out, and that'll put them in a net gain for that day. That is all those things that turning up on time, you can't coach them to come up to turn up on time. They've got to have that respect and that thing to turn up there and put in that graft. And a lot of the times, the work that goes on outside of a PT session is the thing that gets results. Because if you enjoy training, like myself, I really enjoy the training side of things, but
that's only 1 hour of your day.
Yeah, the nutrition is the biggest struggle for me. It's what I eat over a course of, say, a 12, 14-hour day that I've got to make the executive decisions for that are going to make myself better over a longer period of time. Yeah. Not just going in, doing something I enjoy for an hour. Like, I could sit and train in the gym for 4 hours a day, but that's not going to ultimately get me closer towards my body comp goals. Understanding the fact that I need to make the right decisions around my nutrition, that onus is on me. And that onus is on the client to make those decisions throughout the day, the week, the month, to ensure that they're getting better. That's not on the PT. It's on the PT's job to keep you accountable to them and make sure that if you're not adhering to it, trying to find a solution why. But at the end of the day, it's on you, and you've got to be the one. The buck stops at you. You've got to be the one to bite the bullet and just do it. And that's my number one at the minute, is do the uncoachables.
Yeah, so like that 1 hour that you're with your PT, that gets misconstrued as like that's the way you get
the golden
your
hour.
Results. That's the golden hour where everything happens. Like, you need to develop those, like, well, you know, those elite behaviors. So like doing the things that, you know, necessarily the boring things that facilitate progress. You need to do those outside of those training sessions as well, because if you don't, you're not really going to get the most out of your training. You might get a little bit, but
yeah, and
it isn't going to matter. It isn't going to streamline that process between you and your coach.
No, and Chris touched on it last week, didn't he? Some of the best players that you've watched physically develop into British and Irish Lions are the ones that made sure they kept the logbook of every single thing they did in the weight room and progressed it week to week. They're the ones that picked up that rugby ball and just passed it in their own time. They're the ones that made the correct choice around nutrition. Yeah. And that's an extreme level of they become British and Irish Lions, but that might just mean that you get to your end goal a little bit quicker. That means that you've made the right decisions, you've instilled the better habits, you've made sure that the process, as Dan said, is as streamlined as possible without the distractions, and that onus is on you sometimes.
And there's an onus on the coach as well to instill those behaviours in that particular client. This is where me and Joel discussed before, you punishing your client isn't going to achieve that. It's just going to be like a
No.
constant cycle of you doing something that doesn't make the PT very happy. That PT giving you a bollock and making you do 100 burpees. It's just going to be a cycle. There's never going to be like a collaborative sort of process behind, like, you know, you're late. Why are you late? You didn't do that. Why didn't you do that? Did you fill in your nutrition logbook today? All those questions, like all those whys, and like, you know, how do you track protein, for example? Go to your client. I told you how to track protein last week. How do you do it? Oh, I know how to do it now. I've been doing it all week. You know,
Yeah.
do you get me?
Yeah, and that's something that you can't coach, and that's where I feel that
You
my
can
clients are
encourage.
most
You can
successful.
encourage it.
Yeah,
You could definitely create that, you know,
positive
belief and
environment
put
around
positive environment around it. Because if my PT was giving me a bargain every week, I wouldn't do that.
No,
Just bring on
and
whatever.
I think that's where a lot of my clients get the most results. They're the ones that put in the work behind the scenes, and then they're the ones that, you know, when you say, "Oh, how are you doing?" They're like, "Oh, I'm doing so well. I've tracked this, I've tracked that, I've tracked this. Everything's going well. Thank you." And then they'll just carry on doing what they're doing.
It's such an individualized process. Like, it's your journey. How are you just going to look and use somebody else as a crutch to get where you want to go? Ultimately, it's down to you as well.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Point 3.
Number 3 for you.
Right, I've gone into the semantics of you know, nutrition and training. It's basically just dump. I don't think food should be a big focus. So like, basically just dump the emotion. Try your best to dump the emotional attachment to food, because, you know, you'll either binge, you'll go into that binge starvation cycle, and it isn't optimal for training. So a point I wanted to put out there is dump food focus. Think of food as just a means to be able to perform in the gym. That doesn't mean don't enjoy food. Like, don't put a meal in front of yourself and go, I can't feel happy when I eat this. I can't enjoy this now because, you know, training. I'll go back to my diet on Monday and I'll be like, So don't put on a big onus on like worrying about food. Just track your food, become accountable, know what you're putting in your body, knowing what you've got to do to not go the wrong way in regards to food. So lose the emotional attachment to food. Don't eat your feelings. Dump the food focus. That's my point 3.
Yeah, and I think on that point, it can be pretty hard. A lot of people do get emotionally invested. They feel happiness when they eat foods they like. They want to eat foods they don't like because they make them, they're not happy eating them. But at the same time, there's got to be there's a balance between the two. You've got to eat your broccoli before you have your ice cream. And I think you can enjoy certain foods you like, and you can get that, but you've got to understand that there's a trade-off between eating some foods that you look at and think, I shouldn't be eating that.
Yeah.
And then there's some foods that you look at and think, oh, I should be eating that. And you've got to get a good balance between those. And I think we can't make that decision as PTs for you. You've got to be able to say, look, I'm willing to make the better choices around my nutrition, even if that means that I sacrifice a little bit of happiness eating that second tub of ice cream. I made the things I need to do to get better.
My point isn't really relating to like eating good or bad foods or foods you enjoy. It's just more like try to dissociate emotion from eating. So like, so if you're eating a meal that you don't particularly like, you know, when you first start a diet or you're in a dog end of like a bodybuilding prep where you're eating just fish and rice all day, you know, that's going to give you some negative feelings. Try to dissociate emotion with eating, because ultimately when you mix the two together, it's going to take away from what the food is going to actually do for you. But obviously try and like make healthy meals that you enjoy. I'm not saying don't do that. Don't feel happy when you're eating food. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying just try and separate the two.
Good point.
That was my
Right.
point 3.
Number 3 for me is all about setting process goals. I think a lot of time, especially when it comes to the weight side of things, people get emotionally attached to a number on the scale. and they're like, I want to be this certain weight because that's what I used to be. And yeah, that should play a role in the direction you want to take your goals. Because if you look good at, say, 9 stone and you're now 10 stone, you know you've been to 9 stone, that's where you look good. But at the same time, don't get attached to that number. Get attached to that, getting closer towards that goal. So a stone is quite a lot of weight, and there is going to be fluctuations. You're going to see peaks in weight, you're going to see drops. And if you're attached on that number, as soon as you see an increase in weight, you're getting further away from your goal. But in reality, that could be a whole host of reasons as to why you're seeing that number on the scale. It could be that you ate a higher amount of food, so you still got food sitting to get. You might not use the toilet that morning. You might have held a little bit more water. You could have been, for females, in a different spot in your menstrual cycle. Does that mean you're not getting better and closer towards your goal? No, it just means that it's an anomaly. And that's where I think setting process goals are better. So with your PT, you should probably set a calorie target and a protein target that you should try and hit. You should have some training expectations that you want them to meet. There should be some like cardio, if you throw in that in for the health reasons as well. There should be a step goal. So rather than saying, what's your outcome goal? Mine's, I want to be 9 stone. Fair enough. Use that as the driving force, but then set some process goals around it. So what do I need to do to make sure that I'm moving better, like closer towards that goal? So whether that be, I resistance train 3 times a week and I get 1 cardio session in. I hit 8,000 steps a day. I hit my calorie target. I hit my protein target. If you're hitting those 4 things, you know you're probably getting better and you're doing the things you need to be to achieving that goal. So even if you may see a little increase in weight, you've done the 4 things that you need to do that you know should be getting you better. If over time you're still hitting those process goals and you're not getting closer to your outcome goal, then look about switching the goal. But that comes back to Dan's point of trying to jump from thing to thing. If you see something's not working straight away because that scale have gone up because of an anomaly, you might think about jumping ship. And then that will pull you back. You'll flip-flop in between a start point and just somewhere along the way. When in reality, that could have just been a little blip that you would have noticed a big drop after. So
yeah,
those process goals are going to keep you accountable to the things you need to do to get better, not the actual end result of it.
It's like, what did I say at the start? The ultimate goal and then small measurable goals was my first point.
Yeah.
So it's going into your point. If you see a little, if you've just got that one goal, like Joel said, and your only measure of that goal is whether you've achieved it or not, those process goals make a big difference. Because if you see a weight increase and you don't consider the other influencing factors, like, and you've got nothing else to measure your progress against, like, you're gonna go into panic mode and you're gonna be like, oh, you're gonna starve yourself, or you're gonna, drastically reduce your macros, or you're gonna be like, oh shit. But whereas if you've got those other process goals you're taking over alongside that, you've got maybe 4 outlets or 4 metrics to measure progress with, as opposed to 1. So you've got training, am I hitting my numbers in the gym each week? Am I, getting fit there? Those, if you're progressing through that and you've just got that little one blip on the scale, you might go, oh, everything else is ticking over fine. There's no reason why this can't be an anomaly.
Yeah.
And that's where you speak to PT then. You'd be like, look, this happened, but this is, it'll be put in check pretty quickly.
That's a two-way process where it could be like, look, is there an anomaly? If it's something that creeps up over time and carries on, then we'll make a decision. But for now, don't worry, you're doing the things you need to do to get better.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that covers point 3 for both of us. We will do a little recap at the end of our top 5s as an individual, because I know we're flip-flopping back and forth now. So point number 4 for you, Daniel.
I've written myself a little analogy / metaphor here.
Oh,
get rid of the binoculars. When you look through binoculars, it makes something far away seem really, really close. Well, I'm here to tell and disappoint you guys that the goal is further away than you think. No, I'm just joking. So basically, my point is get rid of the binoculars just means is understand the process is long And it ties back into my point one. There's like other influencing factors and variables that ultimately steer you away from like that goal being right there. So training, if you look at it from a science perspective, the training processes and adaptations and things like that, it's never linear. You're never just going to be a straight path to progress. There's always going to have to be like little contingency plans in there that you will have to, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get your goal. It just means that you've got to understand that it isn't it isn't going to be a fast sort of like, you ain't just going to get it in 4 weeks. Do you know what I mean? This is what I mean. Like, understand that you're in this for the long haul. Don't go into that, personal trainer client relationship with the expectation of you're achieving that in 4 to 8 weeks. Commit to the process, because ultimately, if you don't achieve that in 4 to 8 weeks and you still believe that you do, you're in for a massive shock and a big disappointment, because your expectations are not met. Whereas if you come to the realization that I'm in this for the long haul, you're in for a far better experience for life. You're setting yourself up for a long-term success, rather than just like a little short-term disappointment dictating then your ability to get back on the horse because you feel like you're not going to get anywhere. Whereas you might not get anywhere in 8 weeks, but another 8 weeks, you might be a lot further towards your goal than you were at the start of the first 8 weeks. Do you get me?
Yeah, and that ties on with my point 4. So my point was going to be dedicate at least 8 weeks to becoming better. So I'm saying you can get results in 4 to 8 weeks, but they're going to be really drastic. They're going to be using means that you really shouldn't do because they're unsustainable. And everyone wants to do that 8-week transformation before they go on holiday. It's doable, but how many times do you see someone do an 8-week transformation, bounce back, and then have to do another 8-week transformation to get back to where they were originally? When if you dedicate a longer time to getting better, you can throw in more sustainable means. So that means you don't have to do any drastic calorie deficits. You don't have to do anything drastic. Is measurable. And then once you get that point, you know what you need. You know what you've done to get there. You can cruise off a little bit to maintain, or you can carry on pushing. There's so many different avenues that you can explore once it's not drastic. And we're all guilty of wanting that quick fix, but understand that consistency is going to trump anything. So if you dedicate a longer time to a process, you're going to get more sustainable, better results that you can rely on, that are going to hold for a set duration of a longer period.
Yeah. I don't mean to be like a heavy critic here, but those, these transformations you see like being uploaded, like the 8-week ones, those people are either in shape or not in shape. If you commit to the process and understand that it's a long-term thing, you'll always be in shape. Well, you'll see somebody who's in the process is always on it, and they're always in shape. There's a reason why fitness professionals, most of the time, they're in shape. They're not these 4 to 6 week transformations where they're in shape, shredded on one day, and then have 2-week holiday and then are out of shape, and they just spiral and snowball out of shape, and then go back into that 8 weeks of torture, in shape, out of shape, in shape, out of shape. Whereas if you do these sustainable things and you commit to the process, you'll manage that better. And I know that's what I would prefer.
Yeah, and I think what you've got to understand as well, what a lot of people, they get that outcome goal, right? 8 weeks, for example, say they want to get that holiday bod. They train for 8 weeks, they get in the shape they want. They're like, oh, thanks so much. But they don't understand that what to do after it. They've reached their goal and they haven't set any other goals. And I think that's where that long-term consistency comes in. That say they've got that 8 week, they've dropped a stone. They got that holiday bod they want. Now no one sets out where do they go from here. And I think that's where your next step should be as a PT and as a client, is setting that next goal. So once you've hit that certain weight mark that you wanted to hit, or you hit that body goal that you want, right, where do I go next? Don't just rest on your laurels and be like, here I am, I've done what I need to do, I'm rocking it, I'm going to rock it, because you've got to now put a means in to maintain that or carry on pushing. And truth be told, it's a hell of a lot easier to maintain something once you've got it than it is to get there in the first place. So that could be that to maintain that new holiday bod, you can eat a little bit more, carry on with your training, and you don't have to do anything drastic, and you're going to enjoy yourself a lot more. But what people don't do is then think about the long term of how do I maintain it. So a pro tip for everyone that's starting a transformation journey, set that out end goal. But once you've reached it, set another goal. Set another goal. Keep setting goals that are going to keep you accountable to what you want to do or get better.
Like
so
you
it could
said,
be that your goal is to maintain, or it could be that your goal is to keep pushing. But you've got to make sure that there's an established point that you want to keep pushing towards.
yeah, it's like we said at the start, you're going to go into it with a few different goals. It's about, it's your job when you're starting out with a PT. You and your PT need to decide what goal is most appropriate for that particular time. So if you start, say if you want to get strong, but you want to get big as well, or you want to get lean, you know, maybe go to have a discussion together, you know, for now, we'll develop the basics, we'll get strong. You know, once you finish that, you know, what we're going to go from here, it's time to get big now. You know, and that's where these like kind of like transitions between goal to goal kind of come in together across that sort of like, you know, 1 to 5 year, 5 to 10 year process.
Yeah, and
The reality is
it's a lifelong
that's the
change.
process.
Yeah, it's a lifelong change. Like,
It ain't just a 12-week process.
No, your health, you're going to live for a set duration. The life expectancy has gone up to what, like 80 plus now? Stop looking for that 12-week. Yeah, stop looking for that 12-week fix when you're alive for that set period of time. You should focus on lifelong self-development rather than a 12-week fix or an 8-week fix or a 4-week fix.
You don't go to university and go into a job and then just stop upskilling yourself. You don't retire after you finish. You don't retire after you finish university, do you? No, unless you're like Bill Gates or something. But yeah.
But my number
5.
my number 5, and I think this is going to be one of the most important things is like a little reality check for everyone. Understand it's about progress, not perfection. So a lot of time, people have these expectations that they need to be perfect. No one's ever perfect, and social media skews these interpretations because they see people in mental nick 24/7. They see training hard. They see them doing all the nutrition bits. When in reality, that's just like a little highlight reel. They're showing the things that they want to see. They're not going to show you them tucking into a tub of Ben and Jerry's at like 11 o'clock in the morning because they're just having a shit day, you know what I mean? Because they're hungover. They're not going to show you all that. And I think that puts a lot of pressure on people to focus on that perfection, when in reality, you just need to focus on progress. So if you're doing something that's getting you better, you're getting better. It doesn't mean that everything's 100% spot on. You're nailing your training, you're nailing your nutrition, you're doing all the uncoachables, you're turning up. Like, the list goes on of the things you could do. Are you going to do them all at once? No. There's going to be times where you fall off the wagon on certain things. And understand then that it's about just getting better, not focusing on that perfection. And I think too many people focus on, oh, but I fancy a drink. What do I do? What do I do? You have that drink because you're not limiting yourself to enjoy life experiences. But understand then, you just got to get back on it. And that's the progress you need. Whereas before, you used to binge drink and then binge eat that night and then have hangover food. Understand that maybe you've toned down on a couple of drinks, and that means that you've limited your food consumption on the hangover day where it's hardest, and you've made progress on that. We're not asking you to be perfect about it, but we're asking you to be that little bit better.
Yeah, I agree. So my 0.5 is a little bit less sort of psychological. It's basically train everything, and by that I mean don't neglect areas that are not your main focus at that particular time. So every training output interplays with each other. So if you want to get strong, don't obviously put the onus on getting strong and put the focus on, developing strength, but don't neglect other areas like engine work and, fitness and cardio and that kind of thing, because ultimately it's going to catch up on you one way or another, either transitioning into a different training block where you may increase the volume. You might not be able to hack that volume just because you've neglected aerobic work and you just haven't got that underlying capacity to perform tasks over a certain period of time. And if you just want to get fit, for example, if I get a client come to me and they just want to be good at running or they want to be robust running, I'm not just going to sit them on a treadmill and program running for them. They'll have to do some areas of strength work to prepare them for that sort of output of activity. So train everything, because ultimately it's all going to play a part in the grand scheme of everything. You don't want to just develop one thing at a time. You want to sort of conjugately organize your training, and by that I just mean train everything, but just prioritize one, but still keep the underlying capacities ticking over.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to a lot about having a PT that understands that is a multidisciplinary approach.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to get better at strength, I know I've got to do so much strength volume to get better. If I increase my ceiling to tolerate strength work by doing some aerobic capacity stuff and building my engine, I understand that that's going to have a big part to play in how strong I can get. Yep. I can recover from the sessions quicker. I can put more volume. I can do more. I can get better. But a lot of the time, if you're shut off to trying other things and doing other things, you're going to cap your ceiling for other stuff. And that doesn't mean then that you try and hammer your aerobic work. That doesn't mean you hammer everything. That just means that you throw in a little bit of it.
Yeah.
And there'll be times where you, like Dan said, you prioritize certain things. And when you've got that understanding, and that should come from the PT, that should be that they've upskilled you. You've asked them why you're doing it. They can provide the perfect rationale as to why you're doing something. And they've helped you understand and educate you around the strength work, say, for example, that you need to do a little bit. Then it's up to you as a client to understand that, this is the boring stuff I need to be doing, but is ultimately going to get me better. Yeah. And I think mobility is the biggest one. So you see people, myself included, I hate doing mobility work. And to be honest, do I do it? No, not as much as I should, because it's the boring stuff that is not what I enjoy doing. I enjoy lifting heavy tin, but at the end of the day, that's going to come around and bite me at some point if I don't start doing it.
The thing is, it goes back to school and, that kind of things, because you need to manage your training. You remember back in school, you had a million exams. You had to manage all those. You never wanted to be playing catch up with either one, because they detract from the ones that you were good at, because you'd have to put a massive focus really short term on ones that you didn't want to do. So relating that to training, you never want to be playing catch up, because ultimately it's gonna detract from the progress on the ones that you actually want to focus on, because you have to put such a focus on the ones that you shit at, basically. And Joel's playing catch up now with his mobility work. He now understands, going through university and everything, shit, that's maybe I should have done that, when I could have afforded the time to do it. So you never really want to be playing catch up.
No. And do as I say, not as I do. Do your mobility work, people, especially those in
We're all guilty. Field. We're all guilty of it, something or another.
Right. So, Dan, a quick little recap of your top 5 points.
So I'll run through them nice and quick. So, in no particular order, create an ultimate goal. Don't deviate from that goal. Assess and decide which goals are appropriate after you've achieved each one, and to sort of keep that process as streamlined and as measurable and as nice as possible. Create little small outcomes along the way. So little process goals that you can measure and that you can relate back to, something to give yourself the progress on. Work with your coach, and coaches work with your clients. Collab together. Don't make it, I'm the boss, you listen to me kind of relationship. Clients, ask questions, invest in the process, learn, PTs, give your clients homework. It'll it'll instill those elite behaviors a lot quicker, and it'll just overall make for a better relationship towards the end, and it'll just make the goals a little bit more easily achieved. Number 3, dump the food focus. Drop the emotional attachment to food. It's going to lead you astray. It's going to make things really difficult when you have to come to a diet phase, if that's even what you want to do. Just like, I'm not even going to go into it because we're going to run over. But right, number 4, get rid of the binoculars. Realize that the goal is not a fast. You can't just get it like that. You can't just look through binoculars, but there's my goal, I can grab it. No, it doesn't happen like that. Aside from the cliche metaphor, understand the process isn't linear. You're gonna have to deviate now and again. You're gonna have to have these instances where you play catch up and so on and so forth. And train everything to try and minimize the risks of neglect of other areas catching up on you in the future of your training. So if you want to get strong and you eventually need to increase your volume, you're not going to be able to tolerate that very well just because your aerobic fitness isn't great. And vice versa.
Right. My top 5 is basically do the uncoachables. So do the things that, when there's no eyes on you and you need to do them, you still do them anyway. The turn up on time, things like that. The things that we can't force you to do, but you need to do to get better. So they're going to be the important things that we can't see that you do. You put in the hard work behind the scenes. That's going to drive a hell of a lot of results. Number 2, question your coach and think of it as a learning process. So PTs, teach a man to fish, don't give a man a fish, or woman, depends who your client is. Number 3, set process goals. So have an outcome goal and where you want to be, but underline the methods and the processes you need to do to make sure that you're getting better to achieve your goals, and make sure that you're hitting those and you'll ultimately come close at that outcome goal as a result of the byproduct of the work you've put in. Number 4, dedicate a longer amount of time. I said no less than 8 weeks, but probably longer. Try and dedicate as long as you can to becoming better. It's about consistency over a long period of time. Stop looking for a shortcut to success for long-term health results. And finally, understand it's about progress, not perfection. No one's perfect. No one's highlight reel on social media is an actual representation of their life. You need to realize that it's about getting better, not being perfect with everything. And that's going to achieve sustainable results. So a nice short, sharp podcast today for you people. Yeah, we hope you liked last week's podcast with a guest, and that we're sorry you have to listen to us two just ramble on again, but we will be looking to get more guests in the future. So if you've got any recommendations of people you want us to chat to, people you'd like us to come quiz and gain some insight from, please message myself, Dan, or the Archive Instagram page, and we can try and sort that out for you.
And watch out for the breakdown on Thursday. If you've got any questions from this week's episode, shoot them on Instagram. Like, you haven't got to wait till the post come up.
Move to the Wednesday, haven't it?
Oh yeah, it have, haven't it? Wednesday now, not Thursday. Every Wednesday's on Instagram.
Every Wednesday we'll do a little recap on this, and it'll be like a general Q&A for me and Dan and yourself to get any knowledge bombs answered, while breaking down this podcast even further if people feel they need to.
Or just come and join us on live for a bit of a laugh, because
a little bit of banter, a little bit of a chat.
But yeah, that draws us to a nice conclusion of episode 7. Hope you've enjoyed. Any other closing points?
No, not really. Just
again,
remember that
if you skip through the first, couple of minutes, check out Joel's new website. He's worked really hard on it. I know it was a long process, so go and check it out.
Would be much appreciated. Get your free ebook.
Yeah, free ebook when you sign up for the newsletter. I know I've signed up. I know I've signed up, guys.
But that has been me, Joel Harris PT.
And me, Dan Evans. DanEvans.pt. I don't even know what I was doing then.
No. And thank you for listening to episode 7 of the Archive Podcast. And yeah.
Thank you. Good night. Much love.
Big love. Big love.